over. Hi and welcome to Solstice and the Great Conjunction and our Soundscape celebrating these cosmic events. Apologies for the drop signal for those of you that are jumping back in. My internet, I'm afraid, is massively unstable. It is one of the reasons I went down from doing a lot of sessions online to only minimal ones, that we could try and get everybody and everything else in the household completely off devices, turn the TV off, turn everything off, turn the heating off, so that the internet stayed as stable as possible. So we are battling it. It has been pretty good today, despite the really inclement weather. So fingers crossed. Which brings me right away to the admin. If we do lose connection again, sit tight for like 20 seconds or so and then refresh your browser. Generally we have the odd moment where there might be a tiny little drop, but most of the time if we just kind of turn everything else off, which we have, usually we get a bit of stability all the way through. So fingers crossed, hopefully we'll be okay and we'll get through the session this evening without too much in the way of technical drama. Mercury has been on our side for a little while now, so hopefully we can work with some good flowing communication energy. So solstice and the Great Conjunction. I was saying just before we got cut off that this time of year is always one of my favourites. Although I'm very much a dark season person, my chart's all in Libra, Scorpion, Sagittarius with a Capricorn rising, so I very much exist in this part of the year. All of my energy is kind of really focused on these autumn season months, so it feels really powerful for me and really kind of exciting to be reaching the end of that phase, because I feel like this has been the kind of germinating kind of expansive phase, and now I can start to take all that new stuff forward into the new season. And I think that's the same for all of us. Even though your chart may be very summery, it may not be in these months at all, you may not feel the influence of the autumn signs and planets that much. Everything is in all of our charts somewhere. It's just about understanding how to interpret the lessons, which I know some of you are really interested in. And this season is particularly powerful. So moving from darkness to light has all sorts of connotations for all of us. And I think coming in from what's been a really crazy, long and challenging year for all of us, coming into a season which is about turning the corner into light, even though it certainly doesn't feel like it, coming into this weekend. We are moving into lighter days now and lighter energy, and that's something really positive for all of us to work with as we move into the springtime. Solstice is traditionally a time where the frost and the ice thaws, which is slightly challenging for us here in the UK, because we all know that the frost and the coldest months are January and February, but we can work philosophically and theologically and understand that this is the time where things are beginning to ease. We can start to move into spring and into thinking about those seeds that we've been planting over the last few months of the dark winter. Solstice was traditionally, in the Wiccan, pagan, shamanic traditions, we're working with Yule in terms of the wording and the etymology, and that really comes from the ancient Gaelic. And when we look at the kind of the story of the word, one of the things I love about Yule actually is it's about the 12 days of Christmas comes from the 12 days of Yule, which is all about the sun god Lugh. Lugh Nasad is the festival we celebrate in the summer. So the sun god Lugh has come back from his journeying and is being reborn again. He's come back to see his beautiful wife Eriu, who's his shining light and joy, and the solstice is where he is reborn to be with her again, and they kind of rise in this beautiful light kind of embodiment of love and joy and consciousness. And he comes to her when she's in her maiden phase, in the beginning of her cycle. And as they journey together, she then kind of moves into the nourishing mother phase as we move into the spring and the summer. And then when he becomes weaker and the sun begins to wane as we get into autumn, she then puts all of her power into him in order to sustain him through the winter. And that's her crone phase. So actually, for us as women, I know most of us are women on this session this evening, the solstice is kind of a really beautiful microcosm of that journey of a woman. We're moving from maiden to mother, a bit through wild woman and into the crone phase. And that's a really beautiful way, I think, to think about the solstice, that we're coming into that kind of maiden newness, new moon energy of rebirth, of kind of starting a fresh cycle with light. So that's a little bit about the kind of background context of solstice. I know lots of you have lots of studying and kind of other aspects, and the shamanic side especially. So I'm not going to go into tons of detail on that tonight because we only have an hour and a half. As some of you would have heard me saying who were on before I drop the first connection, I'm having a real problem with my hearing today, so I really apologise if the sound's all over the place. I'm trying to watch the levels, and I think my voice is louder than usual because I can't hear myself. It's like I'm shouting underwater. So apologies for that, and I want to make sure that we have more focus on the sound tonight, being as I'm not so confident in my voice today. However, the big theme, which I know unless you're under a rock you can't possibly have missed, is the Great Conjunction. For anyone who is unclear on what this is the conjunction, the meeting in the sky of Saturn and Jupiter, the two biggest planets in our solar system, who have the biggest force both in terms of physics and energy. Jupiter is our planet of expansion, of positivity, kind of uplifting, outward facing energy, luck, abundance, all the good stuff. Represented often by the Wheel of Fortune, that kind of spin of the dice and things just falling in your favour. Saturn, my first tattoo and my first gong, deeply attached to Saturn. Saturn is kind of the opposite in lots of ways, though that's maybe making it over simple. Saturn is our teacher, he is our great wisdom, karma, luck of the other sort, the one that brings us challenges and restrictions. He's a disciplinarian, often known to offer us challenges so that we can learn the lessons to overcome them and treat them differently next time. So these two great giants have really big, huge energetic forces. Saturn in particular has a really particular orbital force on Earth, and his energy is really strong when he moves into a new sign, as he has done about 5 days ago, or 4 days ago on the 17th. So when these two planets conjunct, their energies are just supercharged and superpowered, and they don't so much cancel each other out as empower each other. Saturn's kind of karmic illumination is kind of seen under the bright light of Jupiter. We have an opportunity to really understand the lessons that we've been learning with the Saturn energies through that kind of big, powerful Jupiter vision and expanse and positivity. What's really interesting is both of these planets have just switched signs within 4 days of each other, and now they conjunct literally almost on top of each other on the first day of the new Capricorn season today. So it's a really interesting time astrologically, and we'll talk a bit more about some of the even bigger themes around that in a moment. But first of all, I just want to show you, I've pulled the camera down a little bit so you can hopefully see my grid down here. It's always quite hard to do these sessions because I want to show you things that are on the floor and have you see the gongs, but I'll maybe bring the camera in and show you this a little closer in a minute. So my astrology grid here, this is laid up for the chart of the day, so we can see exactly what's going on with all the planets and where they're sitting. And if you can see this, you'll see that most of the activity is happening here in the north of the chart. It's in houses 10, 11, 12 primarily, moving through Capricorn, Aquarius and Pisces. So you can see the two big crystals I've placed here. I've got Saturn, represented by black obsidian, karmic, protective, difficult, often challenging to get a hold of. And I've got Jupiter, represented by orange calcite, the stone of happy transitions, also used a lot for abundance and luck. I have the sun here in Capricorn, and he's represented by citrine, and the moon by moonstone, which today is in Pisces. And all these other crystals here are representing the current planetary placements. So we have carnelian, which is representing Mars, who's currently in Aries, for example. And we have lapis, representing Mercury, communication, and he's also currently in Capricorn. Along, what have we got here? I've got Neptune with the angelite here. So I'll take a picture of this and put it in the chat and put it on my Instagram so you guys can take a closer look. But I find I every morning move these crystals around so I can have a look at where the chart is for the day and understand what's going on with the planets and how they're moving and how I feel about where they are in my own houses. So it's a really interesting way to work. Saturn and Jupiter are meeting today at 0 degrees Aquarius. So they're actually 6 arc minutes, which is a quite fascinating mathematical astronomical way of measuring space and time. Saturn is actually so much further away than Jupiter, obviously, which is why when you look in the night sky, Jupiter is super bright and Saturn is a very distinct and clear dot. And if you're looking through even a telescopic iPhone at the moment, you can make out the rings, which is amazing. But he is so much further away, but they are, despite being really far away, look like they're in alignment as we look from Earth, which is really exciting. And what's happening with those alignments is that they are allowing us to just kind of feel the energy of both planets in hi-fi. This is something we get only every 20 years. The conjunction is every 19.65 years. And what's really special about this one is that you can't see it normally. It's been 800 years since this conjunction has been really visible in the night sky, and unfortunately the Cornish weather, the clouds, have ruined it for us tonight. But it will be visible in some parts of the world. And I was writing on my newsletter earlier, there's a really great site that I can send you a link to, which allows you to watch what's going on with the planets all over the world. It allows you to see through the telescopes of some really amazing astronomers and observatories. What do I want to say about this really? So 0 degrees Aquarius is the big thing. You've all heard of Age of Aquarius, of course. We've all grown up with the musicals and the songs and this kind of utopian ideal. And the thinking is that the Age of Aquarius is this move out of a kind of tangible, material, physical world, represented by Capricorn, where these planets have just been, represented by the kind of earth energy, this kind of very physical, human-created, manufactured energy. And we're moving from that into something very different. Aquarius is all about innovation, about the future, about technology, about progress. It really represents the collective working together, communities working together for the greater good of all. So it's a real step away from this kind of individual kind of mentality, the self-serving mentality of the Capricorn energy, which is all about personal goals and ambitions. And you can kind of see this through many different arcs. One analogy that I find really useful is thinking about the 80s and the baby boom. And I was a child of the 80s, and I definitely remember growing up with this kind of mentality of self-employment and being self-made, and people having those mobile phones that were the size of briefcases, and money and the stock market, and just the 80s. You can look at films like Wolf of Wall Street and really get a sense of that. And I feel like certainly in the last 5 to 10 years, we've had a real shift socially and culturally across the planet. People in the West, where we tend to have subscribed a lot more to this capitalist patriarchal mentality, beginning to shift, coming to events like this, coming to gong baths, getting much more into yoga, not just for how it makes you look, but how it makes you feel, understanding meditation in a different way, starting to engage with alternative therapies, holistic work, moving away from kind of the physical, tangible, and into the higher realms. So in some ways you could analogize it as coming away from the root chakra, from that grounded earth aspect, and coming up here into the third eye and the crown. So it's a really exciting time, and I think almost everyone that I read, all of my teachers, people I study with, my colleagues that I talk to, pretty much everybody is really tangibly feeling a shift. And I did this session in person yesterday at a venue in Newquay, and one of my guests there was a good friend who is a Atlantean Reiki master, and she like me has been really feeling the sense of this 3D world crumbling and the 5D world kind of beginning to rise up from the ashes. So it's such an exciting time. It all sounds kind of esoteric and way out there, I know. So I will crack on a little bit and talk to you a bit more, I think, about some tarot, as if that's not esoteric enough. The solstice is really well represented by the sun card, and I draw a card every morning in my own personal meditation, and actually this morning I drew the sun, which was quite amazing. So I'm going to grab him off my little altar and bring him down into our space. So the Wheel of Fortune represents Jupiter in the tarot, and that's really all about that idea of luck and abundance. And we've got quite a few cards that relate to Saturn. Actually, the Death card often is related to Saturn, to do with karma, that idea of a rebirth, a cycle, very sort of Plutonic. So I always like to start every session with a card for the session, a card that I've drawn with the energy of this space. Just doing a gentle shuffle here. And you can shuffle cards any way you like. I'm using a real tarot today rather than an oracle, the Moonchild Tarot, which is one of my faves. And the number 7 is coming to me. So, card 7. Let's see what the tarot has for us today. The 7 of Pentacles. Let's see if I can show you this card. It's really interesting. The 7 of Pentacles came up yesterday for one of my guests at the session as well, and I did shuffle that deck way better than it looked. It's been shuffled several times today already. The 7 of Pentacles is really interesting. It's a really Pentacles, of course, are Earth, so they're relative to this Capricorn energy that we're moving out of in terms of Saturn and Jupiter, and moving into today in terms of the Sun. 7 of Pentacles is all about kind of peace and abundance. You may be able to see, if I shuffle a little closer, that our Seven of Pentacles lady is meditating, sitting in stillness, really peaceful. Her pentacles are kind of around her head like a halo, like a crown. And what this card traditionally represents, or how I feel it was working particularly today, is the idea of peace and abundance, that actually we're reframing our sense of abundance, which absolutely has been a theme of 2020. We've all had to think really differently about what it is that we value in our life, what's important to us, how we earn our living. For so many of us, that's really changed. We've had to find new ways of doing our work, or change our work totally, put things on hold, expect that we might earn less, and what that means, and can we be okay with that. So this idea of reframing abundance has been really important all year, and I think will continue to be for sure as we move into this new Aquarian era, this new Aquarian chapter. But the Seven of Pentacles is all about peace in that abundance as well. It's all about the idea that, you know, and that you have exactly what you need, which sounds really old and we all heard it 1,000 times, but no matter how much you think you need more, and how much, you know, that new pair of yoga pants would really improve your practice, or that particular crystal necklace would really improve your rituals, you know, or you just would like a new dress, or a new pair of shoes, or better hair, or a different car. Actually, you always have what you need, and it's just a case of absorbing inwards and looking at exploring your own abundance and your own values around abundance. A great way to do that is a daily gratitude practice, writing down 3 things you're grateful for every single morning. And that can really help you reframe your understanding of what material wealth actually is. So the Seven of Pentacles is an interesting card to come up today. She is kind of citing completion of her abundance journey. She doesn't need stuff anymore. She's in her kind of spiritual space, feeling in a place of stillness, serenity, quietude and meditation, and she is perfectly at ease with where she is. And I think that's a really great message to take out of this Capricorn journey, particularly the Saturn side of it, which has been 3 years, and take into a new era where actually abundance is going to mean something really different to all of us. So that is our card for the session. I'm just going to take a moment, if I can, without kind of enormously flashing you, which is really hard on this camera, just show you that little grid. So the other problem with doing these online, or the only problem, is that it's really hard to show you ritual grids very easily. So what I've been working with today is a personal grid, which you may just be able to see here on the edge of the frame, where I'm working with crystals I've selected, particularly relative to my own houses, my own approach to this transition. So for example, Aquarius is my second house, which happens to be kind of self-worth, money, not career, but money and abundance. So it's really relative to all those things I've just been talking about. So my grid is very much about my own journey within those realms, those stories. Yours will be unique to you always. Fragrance-wise and scent-wise, the same part of our brain deals with smell as deals with sound. So one of the reasons I love using scents in all my sound sessions is that if ever you want to come back to your meditation, to the journey you've been on during this session, you only need to select the scent that you worked with, and it will help you plug back in. It will plug those emotional memories back in. It's one of the things we do with sound that works so well with Alzheimer's and dementia, and with spectrum disorders, actually, like autism. It really helps to connect memory to conscious bodily function. So the scents I've been working with a lot at the moment is some quite grounding scents as we move into Capricorn. So the bundles, the smoke bundles I'm using, which I'm not using in here today because every time I do this at home I smoke myself out and end up having to open windows and therefore annoy neighbours. Obviously you should always smudge or smoke with windows open anyway, but for the sound I have them closed. So I've been using spruce, fir and pine, and then cedar as well. I've been binding mine with fluorite, a lovely kind of beautiful local fluorite, which is all about kind of mental cleansing, mental acumen, and plugging your intellect and your intuition together, which is a very Sagittarius theme that we've been working with for the last month or so. These scents are just really evocative for me of certain woods, certain forests, certain earthly aspects, and they've been really grounding, and it's nice to use those scents as you move through an energy like Sagittarius, which is very fiery and nomadic and free-spirited. So I want to keep some of those in because I've been finding them really supportive. But as we come into Capricorn season, we want to kind of lift ourselves out of our root a bit and get back up here into the third eye. Capricorn can get very practical, very tied up in the money stuff, very tied up in goals and organisation, spreadsheets. Capricorns love a spreadsheet. So it's a really good time to try and ascend a little bit, get up into the third eye. So frankincense is the obvious one for that. I do use a lot of Palo Santo as well. And also lavender, just to calm some of the anxiety that goes on with that kind of constant focus on goals. As we move through solstice, it is really nice to stick with those foresty energies. And my altar, which is just out of shot, I have all of those kind of foresty things on. We also have some wild orange, we've got some berries, things that feel quite festive. There's clove, there's cinnamon. I've got some ginger as well, kind of heating spices, which is all about reintroducing heat and warmth and sun. So if you're working with a slightly more shamanic or solstice oriented altar, then you probably really want to go to that woody kind of spicy end. If you're working a little bit more on the astrological side, then I would say move towards that kind of higher chakras, work with frankincense, work with myrrh, work with that stuff that really helps to ascend and to elevate. What else should we talk about? What do you guys want to talk about? I need to check the chat. I always have to run up and down and come and see what's happening and make sure you can hear me okay. So I'm just going to do that briefly actually before I get into the sound, otherwise I will not be able to check once I'm playing. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, if you want to ask anything before we get started fully, just let me know now. I'm going to come up to the screen. I know this is really undignified and I'm so sorry. Okay, so last message I can see is everyone coming back after the drop, so hopefully you're all still here okay. Awesome. Okay, if any of you have any questions about anything I've already talked about, just drop them into the chat now while I'm taking a look at it. And then we'll get into the sounds in a moment. So I'm just going to lift the camera a little bit so that we can be a little bit more focused on the sound space. Bring the bowls in. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot wait to have proper studio space again. It is unbelievably hard trying to function in the frame on these things. I need to try so hard to be able to see and hear you all. And I think the most special thing about soundscapes when we have them in person is that they are so interactive. They really are about talking to each other, you know, people sharing their thoughts, dropping into the chat, telling us, you know, dropping in person, sharing their experiences of the energy, because it has been a really funky up and down flow this year. I mean, for all the obvious reasons, but energetically it's been really big and really changeable. And we've had, certainly through that autumnal season, like I mentioned, the Libra to now Libra to Cap, it's been quite heavy, like really heavy, not just Scorpio heavy, but dark heavy. And I think the new moon in Sagittarius 2 weeks ago gave us a real, a week ago, gave us a real blast of kind of freshness and fire, which felt really good. And certainly the 3 sessions I've done over this weekend, most people really felt that kind of little ignition around the 12th to the 14th of December, which was amazing. And then it does feel a little bit like we've shifted back in the last couple of days, but I would definitely argue that that's our news and news channels and our government, and maybe to bear that in mind and thinking about how you're feeling, that actually the energy is still pretty high. And coming into this weekend and into today's conjunction, it's really high. It's really kind of heady and sparkly and positive and uplifting. And I feel like anything is possible at this point. Humanity is stepping out of this crumbling old patriarchy, old code, old programming, and we're moving into something that's really about new earth, about a much more exciting, positive age. And divine feminine is going to be a hugely important part of that. So it does feel like we have this kind of fire and spark available to us, even as we're moving now back into an earth sign in terms of the actual zodiac. But I think we've all got very distracted by what's going on in the material world. So I would love to know how you guys are feeling about that, and we can chat about it at the end. I can see someone's message, so I'm just going to jump up and check. I'm so sorry to jump back and forth. Claire taking notes. Claire, we'll have to hang out. I keep feeling like I feel like we should hang out and go for coffee and talk about all of this. And that goes for anyone in Nuki, actually. I really want to try and start doing some circles that are just chatting about our astrology and the kind of emotional ebb and flow, as well as actually what we're doing with the sound and the meditation around that. So in fact, watch this space. I'm saying that we have that planned for the new year. So Okay, guys, I'm really so sorry. My ear is really giving me quite a lot of bother. So I'm going to just move into the sounds perhaps a little earlier than I normally would. Normally we'd maybe chat a little bit more about the prevailing energy. We'd talk a little bit more about certainly this mega astrology that we've got going on. And we can definitely chat at the end. And if you have questions, if you've been taking notes or I've been going too fast, which I know I often do, by all means save them up and we can, I'll come and sit by the computer at the end and we can have a proper chat. But I'm going to get into the sound now because I have been talking at you for the best part of half an hour. And much as it's really important to understand the context for our journey together today, I know you're all here for the gongs, so let's crack on with those. We are going to start though with a crystal bowl meditation, which I find amazingly supportive of jumping down into that delta or theta space. These bowls are 432 hertz. I'm just using 3 tonight, literally because of space. You're going to get a beautiful chord out of those. And the 432 hertz is the frequency of the universe. So in theory, when you're connecting with and vibrating on this frequency, you're really vibrating on the frequency of everything around us, including those 2 big planets up there. So it's a really exciting and beautiful way to tune yourself into the world around you, and it's why we have that amazing kind of high, heady feeling as we move through the sound space, because we are, literally in tune with nature in a way that normally we don't allow ourselves to be. So I'm going to kick off in just a moment. I would take this last few seconds to just get hold of anything you need to be comfortable. If you've got any lights on around you, it's a good thing to get darker. What's really beautiful as we move through the solstice is embracing this moment of deep darkness, that deep shadow, not necessarily for shadow work, but for the opportunity to observe in absolute silence with no distractions, with no external illumination. In the darkness, you really only have yourself and your journey, and it's a really beautiful state to be in. So for me, this kind of solstice energy is as much about that total inner vision as it is going outwards. So let's settle down. Wherever you are in your space, find yourself either seated or lying. Some people, when I cue this in person, I often do the bowls seated. So if you'd like to try that, then by all means give it a spin. I'm just checking all my lights are on. Yes. our plans, our goals, our visions, start our new chapter. If you're looking to start a new project, a new job, get something off the starting blocks and out there into the world, now's the time to really focus on your solar plexus and start to actualize. Bring your ideas into reality. Make it happen. Let's move on up to the heart chakra, anahata. Not the physical heart, but the spiritual heart, the heart center. The color here is green or perhaps pink. The shape is six-petaled lotus. The energy is of the element air. And here we deal with harmony, healing, romance, partnerships, friendships, business partnerships, our relationships with others, our compassion, our love. It's always a beautiful place for meditation. Let's move on up to the fifth chakra, Vishuddha. The color is blue. The shape is a triangle. You'll find this in the throat where the Adam's apple would be for guys. Here we're ruled by Mercury, metal, and the themes are communication, speaking your truth, finding your own authentic personal voice. And as we move through this huge transit, the great conjunction, Saturn and Jupiter moving together, we have the opportunity for Jupiter's positivity and light to illuminate the wisdom and the hard lessons of Saturn, and how we communicate this journey is really important. Important to our own progress, our development, our spiritual journey. Let's come up to Anya chakra. The sixth chakra is above and between the eyebrows. The color here is purple. The shape a triangle with an eye open. And this is the seat of our intuition. The part of us that knows synchronicities and coincidences are in fact ruled by universal truth, a oneness and knowing that we all hold if only we can tune into it. And this is the portal through which we access our higher realms, our higher experiences in our sound journey. When we're in person together, we will unlock the third eye with the tuning fork, so perhaps allow your index finger to touch this space now and invite it to open. Invite yourself through the portal, through the doorway, into your own higher realms. And now we arrive at Sahasrara, the seventh chakra, above the crown of the head. A 1,000 petal lotus with no color, just pure universal light. And now as you imagine this light, as you see it, as you visualize it, as you are and believe that you hold it, you know that the Sahasrara chakra is your access, your doorway, the veil that takes you to higher consciousness, higher realms, the 5D world, the intangible world represented so willingly in our zodiac by Aquarian energy, the part of us that knows we're not our body and we're not our mind. We're something far more cosmic. And now as you visualize this beautiful white light emanating from the crown, imagine it enveloping your shoulders, your throat, your heart, your solar plexus, the sacral region, the root. very gradually, your consciousness becomes aware of two celestial bodies out there in space in front of you. Jupiter, expansive and bright and abundant and lucky and positive, slowly moving into the center of your mind, your consciousness, offering you optimism and fortune, the ability to see the silver linings, the glass half full. And further away, but in perfect alignment, as icy rings always in motion, you see Saturn, the Lord of Karma, with all of his wisdoms, his lessons, all of his moons. Titan, maybe the most Earth-like of all. And with Saturn comes the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding of boundaries, of limitations, not always of obstacles, simply of learnings. And gradually Saturn moves into the perfect alignment with Jupiter, and the light and the dark merge. And all you see now is one bright light in front of you at the center of the universe. A bright light like a star, like the Star of Bethlehem, the Christmas star. A bright light so rare we only see it every few hundred years. And your soul, your consciousness moves now towards that light, gradually easing into the light at the center of your mind. As we move through the solstice, out of the darkness, into the next chapter. And gradually now you slip through that bright light, the two planets colliding, meeting, aligning, the energies in synchronicity, always giving you exactly what you need. And as you slip through the light, you find yourself still floating, but now in water, back in your body. And it's daylight, the darkness of the galactic sky behind you, and you float in the water, maybe an ocean or a sea or a river that you know, or maybe you don't. And as you float, you feel the water lapping at your cheekbones, at your fingertips. You feel at one with the fluid transformational element. And as you float, you feel the sun, the light, beating down from above, and gradually that sun warms your skin and you feel the fire. And you connect back to your solar plexus and you feel the energy of action, of courage, of confidence, energy of progress. And as you float in the water and feel the fire, now you feel the air, the breath on your lips, on your nose, the gentle breeze as it flutters your eyelashes and dries the water on the tip of your nose. And now the breath begins to come back and you feel into your body and you begin to recognize where you are, and slowly you turn in your water and you start to swim, to float back to shore. And as you get more shallow, your toes sink gradually into the seabed between the pebbles and the shells. And you connect with earth, stable, rooting, grounding earth. And as we move into Capricorn, sun season, and out of the conjunction in Capricorn, you remember the Capricorn theme of mountains, half in the water, and you know that you can be strong and stable wherever you are. The next right step is always in front of you. And now you're walking out onto your beach, a perfect balance of water, fire, air and earth. And gradually now you find yourself shallower and shallower with the water at waist height and at knee height, and now it's ankle height, and brushing the tops of your feet as you walk out onto the sand. And as you sit or stand on your beach, a perfect balance of all the elements you recognize in yourself. The fifth element, spirit, soul, that which gives all the others consciousness. Reflect on your perfect soul conjunction. You know that all the world is sound, all the world is frequency, all the world is vibration, vibrating in flow, in tune, in harmony, just like you. Sometimes the most powerful sound of all is the sound of silence. gently wherever you are, bringing some small movements back into your fingers, into your toes, allowing the head to drop softly from side to side. Maybe taking some deeper breaths now, feeling the belly fill and lift, feeling the lungs expand as the air journeys back into the organs, back into the extremities, your body connects and earths. And maybe now some bigger movements. If you feel like grounding your feet, maybe windscreen wiping the knees side to side, perhaps stretching the arms overhead, pressing the pelvis and the shoulders into the earth and awakening the spine. Welcome back from wherever you are. And as always, even in your own home, it's appropriate to mention that for some people, you feel like you may never move your body again. You feel levitational, disconnected, like you've been completely separate somewhere, completely different, and you may want to stay sitting exactly where you are, lying exactly where you are. The beauty of doing these sessions online is that some people simply go straight to sleep from here. And some of you may wish to get up and ask questions and move around and feel really energized, and that's also a really normal experience. There are no unusual experiences. Everyone is different, whether it's your first sound bath or your 1000th, whether you've never done one online before. Obviously the very big difference is that we can't get the vibrations into the body in the same way, so these sound baths online function much more as a meditation than as a physical healing, which they can of course do in the 3D world or 5D world. So taking it very gently and acknowledging wherever you are, taking a few moments with your journal, observing any images or words, very specific intuitive moments that are coming in for you. Often we find out of the sound we have a very clear idea about something. Maybe it's something we didn't expect, that we didn't bring into the session as a meditation, as an intention. Your journey is always your own. Maybe you started with a very clear focus, maybe you didn't. Perhaps now you know what it is. Maybe if you also pulled a card, have a look at that card now, see if it means anything different to you. I always like to close a session with some grounding in a shared space. I would use the spray I'm using for myself now, which is a airy, foresty, grounding, balancing mix of spruce and bergamot and lavender and cedar. If you haven't got any oils with you, simply imagine your favourite scent, taking it into the nostrils, into your memories, feeling the lungs open up more as they take in that new energy. And wherever you are, come in gratitude for the journey you've allowed for yourself, the space you've made for yourself this evening. So guys, thank you so much for your presence. I'm going to close our circle here because, as always, I'm over time. Even on the internet in my own spare room, I managed to be late. We did start a few minutes late, I suppose, thanks to the IT drama. Thank you all for holding space. Thank you, especially if it's your first time with an online gong, for giving it a chance. I'm keen to hear your thoughts. I hope you had a great experience and had a great meditation to take yourself into the solstice, through the darkness, into the lighter season, into this really powerful, amazing energy that's going to roll with us all the way through into 2021 and beyond. We have 200 years of the air energy of the Great Conjunction, and this is day one. You know, how magical, how fortunate we are to be alive on day one of this age, of this new era. So big gratitude. Thank you all. Have a beautiful solstice. I wish you a Merry Christmas. I'm going to take a pause and come straight over to the chat. So if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, I'm going to come up to the screen so I can join you and answer them. If you'd like to message me privately, please feel free to do that. You don't need to stay on the chat if you have questions you'd rather keep separate. For those of you in the Cornwall, North Cornwall area, we have one more session in person as long as the rules don't change again. On New Year's Eve, it's going to be an afternoon session from 3 until about 5:30, so you can still go out and do whatever you're going to do after to welcome in 2021, something I'm sure we're all excited about. So if you're interested to come and experience the sounds in person, particularly if you never have, if your experience so far has been online, which is a wonderful medium, I do encourage you to come and experience them in person. And we are getting a schedule together for January and February, tentatively, kind of waiting to hear about the latest rules before we do anything. But certainly New Year's Eve there will be one. There'll be a live event online on the 1st of January, an intention setting workshop which we're going to do on Zoom so we can spend time in circle before we move into the sound. So please keep an eye on newsletters. There'll be one going out tomorrow, and if you would like to join me, I would be so thrilled to see you there. Thank you all so much. Take a moment to check into some conscious breath work, inhaling in through the nose to the count of 4, holding your breath and exhaling to the count of 8. Really feel the breath exit your body, taking another cycle. Inhale 4 in through the nose, holding for 4, exhaling for a long, luscious 8. And on your final round, as you inhale for 4, maybe bringing your awareness up to that space between the eyebrows. Seeing if you can see any activity, any colours, any sensations in this area. And on your exhale, maybe reaching your arms overhead slowly, opening your palms to welcome back the sun. And draw your Anjali Mudra back through your third eye, your throat, and your heart. The light in me honours the light in all of you. Thank you for your presence. Namaste.